Okay, let's talk about transportation. We know, as we've seen before, that the bloody code had been something of a failure. So an alternative was needed, an alternative to hanging, which was a very, very harsh punishment, an alternative to whipping, which was the punishment for minor crimes. So a middle form of punishment was needed. Transportation, moving the convicts out of Britain to another place, seemed an ideal solution to this problem. And so convicted people were sent to America to begin with, removing the problem from the British Isles. However, this has to come to a halt because in 1776, of course, America declares war on Britain and eventually they gain their independence. So America is no longer a possible destination for British criminals. So where else can they be sent? In the 1780s, Captain Cook discovers Australia and the British are keen to colonise Australia. This appears to be an ideal place to send our convicts. Kill two birds with one stone. We can get rid of the convicts and we can make Australia a British colony. So in 1787 the first fleet set sail for Australia. A series of ships loaded to the rim with convicts, transported literally to the other side of the world. Who's being sent there? In the main, it's not very, very serious offenders. It's your burglar, your petty thief, your petty criminal. And in the main, they're either sentenced to 7 years or 14 years or for life. The first journey, horrendous journey, takes something like 8 months. Subsequent journeys will take something like 4 months. So it's literally, if you're an English person being sent to Australia, it's the equivalent to us of being sent to the moon. Somewhere totally unknown, literally the other side of the world. And when they get there, the first convicts have to build their own facilities, build their own houses, build their own accommodation. There's literally nothing there. It's a totally undiscovered country. Over 150,000 people would eventually be transported to Australia. The peak decade for transportation is in the 1830s and it will eventually come to an end in about 1868. Why does it come to an end? For a few reasons. Firstly, the cost of sending criminals out to Australia becomes very prohibitive. In today's terms, it is costing billions of pounds to send criminals out to Australia. Secondly, the Australians, the ordinary Australians, not convicts, people who had chosen to travel to Australia to start a new life, they begin to resent the fact that their country, their new country, is being used as a dumping ground for British convicts. So they petition the British Parliament, please stop sending your convicts to Britain. Another reason, gold is discovered in Australia, and this makes it an attractive destination. So the place loses some of its deterrent value. Another thing that adds to that is the fact that in Australia, prisoners, after they've completed their sentence of 7 or 14 years, decide to stay in Australia. Why? Because the standard of living is better there than in England. They can have some chance of starting up a farm, making a living for themselves, earning more money, growing more food than they would in the UK. So again, Australia as a deterrent, although it's on the other side of the world, loses some of its strength as a deterrent. So eventually it will come to an end. Another reason that it comes to an end is by the 1860s, 1850s, 1860s, prison is now the main form of punishment. There's no longer any need to send people halfway across the world to this place of incarceration. So by 1868, transportation is no longer used as a punishment. Just to remind you, let's have a look at this. What have we got? The bloody code had failed. Transportation appeared to be a middle punishment between hanging and whipping. It was a solution. It would get rid of the problem. It would remove British convicts. Hopefully the crime rate would go down. Begins in America, finishes in America in 1776 because they gain their independence. Australia is the destination from 1787 onwards, lasts roughly for 80 years. Over 160,000 people are transported during this period. It stopped because it's very expensive. It becomes very expensive. Australians begin to object that their country is being used as a dumping ground, and it becomes seen as something of an opportunity. Standard of living, your life prospects are better there than back in the UK, and ever more in the 1850s and 60s, prison is being used as a punishment for these types of crimes. That's transportation.